All right, we're on.
Welcome to the first episode of the Prosper Podcast. I'm here with my producer, Glenn Newton.
Hello.
Did you swim here, mate, or how did you get here?
Thankfully enough, I could drive. Yeah,
Mate,
yeah.
it's been crazy.
I know some of those fellas out. Luckily, we don't live in the mountains or anything.
I know.
Wouldn't have been able to get here at all.
I know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of floods going on in New South Wales at the moment. Windsor's unbelievable. How about that bridge? You know, that
floodproof bridge, which is currently underwater.
Hey.
Well, how do you make a floodproof bridge anyway? That seems like a silly concept. Like, why do you call it that? Just don't call it that.
Probably the sillier thing is the people that believed him. You know,
Yeah.
It's like some developers are like, mate, I've got a floodproof bridge for Windsor.
Yeah.
You know, and that someone's just gone, yeah, here's $200 million or whatever it costs.
I feel like the only way to make a floodproof bridge really is to build it higher than literally anything else around. But it's not. It's like if you've driven on it, you go down onto it from one side and then up off at the other side.
That's waterproof, isn't it?
A tunnel?
Just build the tunnel.
I feel like that would be way worse. Oh, under the river. Yeah, it sounds more expensive.
I know Elon Musk always talks about tunnels being the solution for everything.
Yeah, don't go up, go down.
Yeah.
There's a lot more room.
And apparently you can do heaps of tunnels.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, oh, it's going to collapse, the ground's going to collapse if you build too many tunnels or something.
Yeah, I've seen that. You know, have you seen iRobot?
A long time ago.
And they have those tunnels of the self-driving cars and they're like flying.
Yeah.
They're absolutely flying, like little freeway things. Because you could totally design it without having to adapt it to any of the stuff we have on the surface. It can just be whatever it wants under there.
You know what's really sad?
What?
I was listening to a Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, I think it was the third one that he's come on, and he's saying that flying cars will never be possible.
Why?
I don't know. Just Elon Musk said it.
That's
so I believe
close-minded.
I know. But Joe Rogan was really upset, and he's like kept asking him, like, what about this? What about that? And
Yeah.
Elon's just like,
No
not
dice.
happen.
No. Is it because dangerous or just not possible?
Well, I think like they talked about magnets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Everything that's magnetic have to be so powerful that like, you know, your watch and stuff would just be flying up into the car and stuff.
But it repels. It would repel magnetic field. A hover car.
I don't know. I think
So it
would
would go over the top of you instead of sucking you to it. It would just push you into the ground.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, that is a problem.
Well, that was just the magnet approach. They talked about a few different approaches. Like, don't quote me, but basically, Elon was saying it's not possible.
I definitely feel like he knows more than me.
Yeah, that's probably why there's no hoverboards.
Oh, I've seen some there. They made some.
Yeah.
Well, they may have been fake.
Like hoverboard, like skateboard hoverboards. Really?
Yeah.
All right, we'll have to have a look at YouTube and put in the show notes.
Yeah, there was one with some sort of gas or something. I feel like it had. I don't know. Yeah, we'll have a look.
I've seen some guy with a jetpack. That was cool.
Like a water one or like a rocket one?
Like a rocket one.
Oh, that's cool.
I know that exists because there's a company in New Zealand that makes them.
It seems wildly dangerous.
It looks pretty awesome. It looks like so much fun. And I'm not an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
But I'd try that.
I would try that. I would 100% try that.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
I've seen the water ones.
Yeah.
They don't look as fun.
It's not as cool. It's not as like, wow, that's amazing because this guy's just floating and flying around.
It looks really hard too, the water one. Like everyone I've seen do it is like, splash.
I feel like it's cheating.
Yeah, a little bit.
So today's episode, we speak with Bart. Bart from Redwolf Rosch, which is an amazing recruitment company. We actually use them at Prosper Digital. But they specialize in digital, IT, and marketing, I believe. So he and I had a coffee recently. He was starting to tell me his story and some of the stuff he's been through, his career progression from a chef to a recruiter and then entrepreneur starting his own business is really cool. So I invited him down, what was it, a few weeks ago?
Yep.
To tell his story. And he actually drove from Canberra for the podcast. So I really appreciate Bart. He's an incredible human being. And yeah, let's jump into the interview.
Let's do it.
Cool. How are you, Bart?
Yeah, I'm well, mate. Yeah, very well.
You drove all the way from Canberra for this.
Did. Yeah, just for this, pretty much. Yeah, and another meeting, but mainly for this.
Yeah.
And it was pelting down.
You don't need to talk about the other meeting, mate. Just own it.
It's not even important. Like, who is it again? I forget.
You saw it was pouring rain.
Oh man, it was like torrential. It was like the floodplains have opened, and you just like you couldn't see 10 meters in front of you. You're hurtling along at like 110. Maybe a little bit faster, kilometers an hour. And you're like, I hope my car's you know, all my driver assist features.
Is it a good car?
It's still all right. It's a Subaru. Like, it's, you know, they're stable, safe cars. But then the thing's beeping and saying, "Oh, traction control's off. Oh, this is off. Oh, that is off." And I'm like, okay, now I really have to pay attention.
Why was it off?
Because it was too much rain. The thing couldn't see. It was like flipping out. Like cars like, you take back over. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm a slow driver in that kind of those conditions.
I considered it, but then I'm like, I don't want to be late. It's already like a 3.5 hour drive.
Yeah. So, safety second, right? That's what they say. So, Bart, you've got a business, Redwolf and Rosch.
Yes.
Yeah. And your recruitment agency?
Yeah, we focus on tech and digital.
Amazing. Yeah, because I've used you before and I had a great experience.
We're brilliant.
I was pretty scared because, you know, recruiters have that reputation.
Yeah.
But you and I just clicked straight away.
Yeah, totally, man.
So you actually just gave me a call and we had a yabba.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's give this guy a go.
Yeah, man. And I'm very grateful because look at us now. Here we are recording your podcast.
But you were telling me last week that you actually started as a chef.
Yes.
And then now you're running a recruitment agency. So how did that come about?
I know, it's so random. So I thought, you know, I was, you know, obviously I love food. I'm a big foodie and I fell into chefing and I thought, wow, this is awesome. You know, you get to just cook, you hang out with awesome people.
Yep.
And it's a great lifestyle, like, you know, just learning all this stuff. As I did that for 7 years, worked in some great restaurants in Melbourne and learned how to cook pretty well. Yep. And then actually at the time, like, there were like a bunch of, I wasn't seeing my friends, like the only people that you end up hanging out with, which are cool people, like, but are other chefs, barmen, you know, waitresses and stuff like that.
It's a different time zone, right?
Yeah, totally. Like if you're having a birthday and it's on a Friday night, guess who's working? The chefs and the waitresses and the barmen. So you don't really you have like a Tuesday afternoon off and you're like pretty much do your laundry. You do your laundry and trying to catch up on your sleep deprived life.
Yeah.
And no one's like, you're like, hey, do you want to hang out on Tuesday? And they're like, I'm at work, dude. So it doesn't really gel.
So you have like Tuesday off?
Yeah, you'd have like Tuesday off. Sometimes you get Tuesday and Wednesday off. That was cool. But typically the hours are long. Like you work like 15, 17 hours. You might be doing 6 days in a row. Sometimes you might do like a stretch of like a month.
Seriously?
Yeah, man. Like,
where's Phil working all this?
This was all before they came in. This was like, I wish I got those big payouts that they did. But
did they get a big payout?
Yeah, I think George Calambaris, the chef in Melbourne, he had to pay like $2 million to all his staff.
Far out.
Because, you know, I mean, he was a scapegoat. I feel sorry for him, but it's so rampant in that industry that it's just assumed like you're like, oh, I'm doing, you know, you just start in at 9 a.m. and you work till 1 o'clock in the morning. And
is it salary?
Yeah, it's just a salary, and it's like 50 grand.
Why does anyone do it?
Well, I know it's a good question. And I think I did it for so long because the lifestyle is awesome. If you're a foodie and you love food, then you literally work with the best food and you not only work with it, but you learn how to make it taste amazing. Like I'm talking like everyone, there's different types of chefs, obviously different types of restaurants, but the people that I worked with that did it, and the reason why I did it is because you get to make mind-blowingly amazing stuff. Like you taste it and you're like, this is literally the best thing I've ever tasted.
Do you get to eat a lot of what you're cooking?
Yeah, you don't get to eat it. Like you get to taste it. So if there's offcuts here, or you know, you're always tasting, right? Because you're adjusting the flavors and balancing it out to make sure that everything that goes out.
So you're full by the end of a shift?
No. You might.
You're probably burning some calories running around.
Yeah, you're burning. I was the fittest I've ever been.
Yeah, wow.
Because you're just literally always running around. You might eat on the run. Yeah, basically. And you don't eat much. You'll have like a little bowl of something and then it's like straight. You're literally running on adrenaline. I think that's why some chefs may drink a lot, especially in that, because it's not that they're alcoholics. It's that they literally, I found myself drinking at night, just having like 3 or 4 beers, literally so I could fall asleep as soon as possible because your adrenaline is so high. There's no way that you're going to lie down and fall asleep straight away. Like there's no way. But if you have like 3 beers or whatever, then you're like more likely to go into that little drop zone where you're like, okay, now I can sleep.
I've heard something about like a lot of drugs in the chef industry. Is that true?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, a lot of drugs. And that's just to keep it going, you know, it's that fast-paced life. It's like a rock star life. I mean, you see the rock star chefs now. I don't think it's not as like, it really depends where you are. Like it's around, but it's short-sighted. So if you think that you can do drugs and then go work at 80-hour week, you're dreaming, you know, like you might do it like, but you're really not going to recover well. And it's going to be, you feel so terrible.
It sounds crazy that people are getting paid, you know, 50 grand, which is around minimum wage.
Yeah.
And they're working 80 hours.
Yeah. Like that's very normal. I mean, as you progress and, obviously head chefs, sous chefs and
they earn a lot
chefs,
more?
They earn a lot more, yeah. So exec chef, like you can be probably on 120, 150.
Okay.
Depends on, how high profile. But even like some of the best restaurants, there's a restaurant in Elstonwick in Melbourne, like Attica, who's one of the best restaurants in the world. And they only make like $100,000 profit for the whole year.
Yeah, wow.
And they're charging like $600 or $500 for people to eat there. So the margins, I don't think you get into it maybe initially for the money. It's not like a money making thing. It's purely for the passion.
The passion for food.
And it is passionate. Like the lifestyle is awesome. I had some lifelong friends, and you just, because you're going into the trenches together, like it's Sunday afternoon and there's like 100 people lined up and they all want to eat straight away different things and everything has to be perfectly cooked. You're like, all right, what do we do? You go.
I've done 6 months at Macca's. Is that the same thing?
No, but that's a good. It's a great place to start. I started at Macca's. Clean as you go. Clean as you go.
Yeah, I was 16 or something. Yeah. I remember McHappy Day or whatever. That was hectic. Oh man.
Yeah.
I was making Big Macs like there's no tomorrows. Yeah. I thought we were going to run out. I'm like, mate, this is crazy. But it didn't last very long.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but that's like a rush. Imagine doing that. Like,
yeah, but with good food.
Yeah. And so then like after that, obviously, I was like, look, I can't, I sort of got to a point where I was running a couple of kitchens and, making my own menus and like it was good. Cool. Yeah, it was good. Like it was a good point. And then I'm like, okay, can I do this for the next 30 years of my life? Like not see my friends, sacrifice my weekends. And I just thought I can't. And at the time I was dating a nurse and like between her shifts and my shifts, we literally had Tuesday night the whole week. That's when we saw each other. And that obviously fell apart. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, so I had a big, like, I guess a quarter life crisis. And I'm like, okay, what do I do?
Quarter life crisis. That's awesome.
Because you're like, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? Like if this was your passion, this was going to be your career.
And did you dream of being a chef growing up?
Nah, I dreamed of being an astronaut and a music producer. I wanted to be Timbaland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's the bomb. He's the king.
Can you do both?
Timbaland's
astronaut and
beatboxing in space. I don't think they can hear. There's no air. It'd be like,
you could hear
hey
yourself.
Man, your mouth is moving. I can't hear any beats.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, but you said you fell into chefing. So
yeah, I fell into chefing. Actually, you know what? That because I was in sales before that.
Okay.
And then and then I think actually no, I remember I had a really bad relationship and I had a full-on breakdown. Like, I was like 20 something and this was a really abusive relationship and I'm like, I've got to get it. But I was too young to know.
Yep.
And then I just started to get anxiety and panic attacks and I'm like, I can't sit in an office. I just can't. I have to move.
Yep.
And so I had to quit my job and like it was pretty devo and get on like meds for 6 months and just to straighten my head
good
up.
on you.
Yeah, man. Like it was really, really tough. And then I'm like, I can't sit still. Like I have to do something that's moving. And I think I was on like, Job Start or whatever they're called. And they're like, dude, you have to get a job. And I'm like, oh, I'll just get this job. And it was chefing. And I'm like, I'll just go there. And I think I started because I was washing dishes and all of that. Some friends had I forgot about that. It was a pretty dark time. And anyway, and so but
you're laughing about it now.
Yeah, I know, totally. Because like every cloud has a silver lining, right?
Yeah.
Like everything that happens that's bad, usually it's because something good is down the track.
Yeah.
So
panic attacks are bad though, because I developed a panic disorder.
Did you?
Yeah.
How long ago?
It was several years ago. We were in a little car crash.
Oh, yeah.
I was asleep. I don't know what it did, but it just unlocked something in my brain.
Yeah, man.
I think it was even more so than the car crash. It was the experience after that where my neck hurt and then the ambulance came and then they, put you in a neck brace and they're like, don't move. And then they transport you to the hospital and you're just laying there like, am I going to be quadriplegic?
Yeah, that's scary.
And you're kind of in pain and stuff. So I think that experience, it was funny. I was fine for 6 months.
Yeah.
But then I just started having little panic attacks and it got worse and worse. Yeah. And then once you have one panic attack, you think you're having a heart attack.
Yeah, so you totally do. I was like, what's going on with me?
I called the ambulance a couple of times, bro. I'm not going to lie.
I was
kind of embarrassing,
Nah, it's not like it's a thing.
It feels real.
It does feel real. Like I remember one night I literally had a bowl of noodles and I went to bed and then I started tripping balls and I'm like, what's going on? And they say like, can we talk about
You talk about whatever you want.
Okay, cool. So when I was younger, a long time ago, and in the rave scene, so as we all may have tried a little bit of acid or whatever, and I thought, you hear stories and you're like, oh, you know, you can have these flashbacks
and stuff. Oh,
you know,
flashbacks.
yeah. Apparently, I don't know if that's true
you've had it.
Yeah, so like it gets lodged. I don't know. There's so many like stories that go around, and when you're bloody 20, you don't really know.
Yep.
And so, and I thought that something had because apparently they say the acid stays in your spinal column. Or
are you serious?
I don't know.
Are they just trying to scare people?
Yeah, probably. But I didn't know at the time, and I'm having these. And I lay down like in bed. I was about to go to bed, and I start like tripping hard, full adrenaline. And I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" And I think I remember I paced around the living room for like 6 hours because just trying to keep it together. And then I was like, "What the hell's going on?" So yeah, that was not.
It's horrible, isn't it?
It's horrible, man.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to fix it.
What happened to me as well, the time I called the ambulance was, so I had a panic attack, but I thought I was having a heart attack. So I started hyperventilating, which actually makes you convulse because you have, I think it's too much oxygen in your system.
Right.
So then I was convulsing. I'm like, man, I'm dying. That's it. Like, say my final prayers. Let's get it. You know, I'm like, goodbye. My now wife, who's my girlfriend at the time, was there. I'm like, look, see you later. This is what I want you to do with my will. No, not really, but
that's intense.
Yeah, no, I seriously thought this is it.
Yeah.
But then the ambulance come. They're like, oh, you're just hyperventilating. I'm like, oh. Shit.
Is that it?
They're like, just slow down your breath. I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah.
So I've learned some pretty cool tricks. If anyone has panic attacks, one that really helps is your body will actually send signals to your brain, right? So when you're feeling panicked, you'll tense up.
Yeah.
And that will tell your brain that it needs to go into fight mode or fight and flight mode.
Yeah.
So what you do is you clench your whole body as tight as you can, hold it for 10 seconds, and then let go. And your body sends a signal to your brain, oh, we're safe now.
That's so good to know. And that's such an instant thing you can do anywhere.
Yeah. So it's a little trick that I learned that helped me get through it. So, but I had to go on medication as well to overcome it because they would just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know. I hated it. Like you literally, I tried to get off it as soon as possible because like you look, it's like you've got two, glass here. One of them's frosted and one of them's clear. And those SSRIs, it's literally like living through frosted glass. It's just horrible.
Yeah, I was on one that didn't suit me. It helped me with the panic attack, but it just, it wasn't helping me. It felt like my mood was sort of compressed where I couldn't have lows, but I couldn't have highs.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I mean. Like,
but I'm now on something else, which just is serotonin.
Yeah.
And I don't notice it at all, but it's helped me get through my depression. So I'm a big advocate for if your brain isn't producing a chemical, go get that chemical.
Yeah. And then improve your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I agree, some of them, if you're feeling like it's sort of limiting your emotions and stuff and you don't feel like yourself, then I think that's probably not the right drug for you.
Yeah.
So the one I was on, it helped me get through the panic attack, but I didn't feel myself.
Yeah, that was my experience. And you know what? And then I went to see a psychiatrist.
Yep.
And I remember how expensive he was because
yeah, we all do.
I went once.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think it was like $180 for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't even get an hour. And he literally sat down with me and he's like, you need to go for a run. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm freaking out. I'm dying, la, 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 la. And he's like, no, I see people that like take 6 ecstasy pills a day just to get through the day. You're fine. You need to start running. And I'm like, are you serious? Are you a psychiatrist telling me this? And
I paid you $180 for you to tell me this.
And I'm like, obviously I didn't go back, but you know what I did? I did go for a run, I think the next day, and I could barely make it around one oval. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize I'm so unfit. And so then I went back the next day and I tried to, I think for a week I could only do like 1.5. Then after that, I started doing like 3 laps and then I worked up to 10 laps.
Wow.
By the time I got to 10, I was off the meds. I was like, and I'm not advocating, obviously, if you need to be on the meds, but for me personally, I think just the breath, the focus, the exercise, like my body started to recover from it. And obviously I moved out of that relationship and whatever. But yeah, man, like, it's just, it's hits you so hard and you don't know why. It could be some trauma, whatever. And then, you might need medication or some, meditation.
Even just to get you through to a point where you can function, like the last couple of years, I didn't have enough will to go exercise.
Yeah, man.
So I just needed something to sort of get me through. And now I exercise every day. I think I don't think you should just rely on one thing.
Yeah, totally.
You need to do the work to figure out why am I feeling like this or experiencing this.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need that assistance.
100% agree, man. And I think it's the support. It's good to know that you've got that support so that you can help get yourself out of the, this situation. Because nobody wants to be in it. I doubt it.
No.
So yeah, good on you.
Yeah, man. And then you.
I don't think mine was as bad as yours. But anyway.
Oh, mate, don't judge. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
you can't compare one person's
that's
experience
true.
to somebody else's
Everyone's
experience.
Yeah,
so
100%.
might have been 10 times worse.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah,
you never know.
It was terrible. Anyway, so then I started to get into I went into chefing, and then I actually fell in love with it. I'm like, I love this. I can't believe people get paid, and I just dove into it, and it was a really good escape for me because I was like, my ex stalked me for like 6 to 12 months. Literally, she'd come into the restaurant, and they're like, she's here, hide, and I'd be hiding under the benches, and she's like, oh, where is he? And I'm like, just tell him I'm not here. So it was like pretty full on. So it took me a really long time to get like through that.
Yeah.
But then when I did, it was awesome. Like, then you're like rolling in it. And I think, I'm just so grateful for the experience. I think it came at the right time and I learned a lot. And the other thing that you learn as a chef, I think, is insane work ethic.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
If you can, like, basically you start, let's say 8:39 and you are on go for
you start at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, chefing. Because you have to prep. Like, one of the restaurants that I worked at was like 2 hats.
Oh, and you're doing obviously lunch and dinner?
Yeah, lunch and dinner. But lunch is fully booked. You sell out of everything. Then you have to prep again for dinner from scratch, everything fresh, everything perfect. And then you finish dinner and then you have to prep for the next day because you might put stocks on or on glazes or whatever it is. And you're like, it's just, and everything has to be fresh, 100%, like super duper. So, yeah, man, it's like, and you have to be organized. Like, your attention to detail has to be top notch. Otherwise you literally get yelled at Gordon Ramsay style. So all of these little things, like, they may seem bad, but when I look at them now, I'm like, actually learnt all these really good transferable life skills. Like, like, everything has to be perfect, like, all the time. It doesn't leave the pass if it's not perfect, like, especially in the fine dining, right? And then you're like, well, every bit of work that I do needs to be as high quality as possible. Otherwise I don't send that email, or I don't send that CV, or I don't write that job ad that's like, I'm not super happy with. So, they're highly transferable. And also you can outwork anyone. Like, I remember when I first started in recruitment. So then I left chefing. I'll just go back a bit. And then, for 4 months, I just literally played iPad games and tried to sell socks on the internet because
You told me about this. You were selling socks on the internet.
I'm like, what do I do with myself? I can't be a chef. I got to a point, like, I basically, I said to myself, once this restaurant turns a profit, because I came into a restaurant that wasn't not doing well. I said, the week they turn a profit, I'm out. So
so they brought you in to make it profitable.
Yeah. So they had like a one-hat chef in there that just wasn't working. And I'm like, why aren't you doing anything? And then the owner's like, okay, so in addition to 5 dinners, we're also going to do 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches. And also we're losing money, so you need to. And I'm like, this was not on the position description, buddy.
What do you mean 7 lunches? Like,
so lunch every day, 7 days a week.
Oh, okay.
And then
7 days. I thought you were just saying 7 lunches. I'm like, that's not many lunches.
Oh, no.
I thought you'd do more than that. No wonder you're not profitable.
Well, only 7 people come.
You just need more customers.
Yeah, then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I meant 7 days of lunches.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, great. So,
and you were the head chef.
I was the executive chef. I was in charge of 2.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a head chef, but like, sometimes you might have a head chef of different restaurants. Then you might have an executive chef of a group of restaurants.
Okay, so it's higher up than head chef.
Yeah, it is higher up.
Wow.
But it was only 2, so it's not that higher up. It was like, instead of 1 restaurant.
It's double.
That's good.
That's pretty good.
That's a very good way to look at it. Anyway.
100% increase, huh?
Yeah, man. Whoa, good return. Anyway, so that's that. And then, so got out, and then I'm like bumming around. I'm like, I don't know what I'd do with my life. I thought maybe going to real estate. I thought music production, but I was terrible. So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be like David Guetta or whatever. Right. So, and then one of my friends that I used to work with, he's like, you should try recruitment. You'd be good at that. And I'm like, what the hell's recruitment? Like, cause in chefing, you don't like people, you put an ad out and some 5 alcoholics show up and you just hire the one that's the least shit.
Yeah. It's interesting that you got into recruitment, but you didn't get into chefing recruitment.
I know. People ask me that all the time. But, from childhood, I've been a geek. Like, I'm kind of a nerd. Like, I like technology.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, and I've always unpacked radios, played with computers. So,
yeah, cool.
So, and the job that I got offered, like, because somebody decided to give me a chance in recruitment.
And you were selling socks at this time.
Yeah, I was selling socks. So my brother, yeah.
Okay.
And I actually, funnily enough, I tried to sell them on eBay, and then I realized how cheap socks are on eBay.
Yeah. I can't compete with this.
You cannot compete. And they were good Italian men's socks. So then I started going door to door to restaurants, because I bought like 500 of them, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to use 500 socks or give away 500 socks.
It could be a lifetime supply.
It's a lifetime supply, yeah. Pretty much. But
never run out.
Yeah. I mean, you got to carry them around from place to place. Yeah. Hey, nice to meet you. Would you like a pair of socks?
Yeah, this is my sock wardrobe. 3 doors that slide across.
I have grey, a slightly different colour grey, and a black.
I've got 11 to 13, 9 to 12.
Yeah.
And children's.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
sorry.
That, you know, it kind of sucked.
Yeah, okay.
But so managed to sell them in the end, which took me a long time. But, you know.
Did you say you were knocking at restaurant?
Knocking on like business doors. So I went to like men's, you know, suit sellers and stuff. And I'm like, hey, would you like to buy some? And I'm like, would you like to buy like maybe 100? And they did, and they're like, yeah, I'll get 1 or 20. And I'm like, I'm not selling 1 or 20. I've got like 600 here that I need to get rid of.
Yeah.
But yeah, finally, got rid of him, which is cool. And then, so this friend of mine, shout out to you if you're listening. He was like, he was in recruitment. He was loving it. He's like, it's a great lifestyle, you know, and we work together doing door to door. So like literally 100% commission, switching people over from one telecommunication provider to another.
Wow.
So, so that was cool. Anyway,
100% commission.
Yeah, there's no base. It's like there's no safety net. So you rock up, and he conned me into it. Like we're mates now, but when I met him, he's like, "Oh yeah, come, you know, do you want a new job?" And I'm like, "Oh, what is it?" Oh, he's like, "You'll love it." I'm like, "Yeah, but what is it?" He's like, "Oh, it's all about networking." And he's just like, come in on Monday, you'll see. I'm like, yeah, but what am I doing? He's like, I'll show you. We rock up on Monday, and then he's like, right, here's your photocopied map with a highlighted area. Drive you out to Whoop Whoop and just knock on doors and try and sell these products.
I've been there, man. It's not fun.
It's not fun, right?
No.
And look, you know, there are certain cases where you can save people money because like, well, give me one bill, and if we can match that rate, you can switch over. It's obvious. But there's no safety net. Like you don't have a base.
So this wasn't recruitment. This was
like hardcore door to door.
Yeah. I did one shift of that.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was selling like car servicing or something.
Oh yeah, that's hard.
The guy who was teaching me sold it to this old lady, and she's literally this is a true story. We knock on the door, and I'm sitting next to him to learn. Yeah. And this old lady answers, "Oh, hello, how are you guys?" I'm like, yeah, good. And this guy goes, "Oh, would you like to buy some car servicing?" She's like, "I don't have a car." And he sold it to her.
That's so bad, man.
And I'm just sitting there going,
not to the little old lady.
Bro, what are you doing?
Yeah,
she's like, oh, you know, do you have a son or a daughter or something? He's like, yeah. I've got a son. So he's like, just buy it for them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but come on.
Yeah,
like, it was a little bit. Cool. Yeah, so after that, I'm like, nah, this ain't for me. And they were trying to con me. They're like, oh, let me just call my boss. And then like 3 steps away from me, it's like, oh yeah, he's all right. I don't know if we should hire him, but yeah, all right. You want to give him a crack? All right, yeah, cool. I'm like, was anyone on that phone? I'm like, yeah, bro, you don't need to worry because I'm not doing this. I ain't coming back.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I think I stayed for 6 months. I quit my job because the thing is, like, the first week that I started, we were in Melbourne, and I was like, what the hell? But then the second week, they're like, oh, we're going on a road trip. And I'm like, oh, cool, let's go on a road trip. And we went somewhere like 6 hours away where nobody visits, and so everyone was super happy to talk to you.
Yeah,
and they were all, Goldmine, and they were all on ridiculously expensive plans. So clearly, we were saving the money.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, right? Yeah, you can feel good about yourself.
Yeah, you can feel good. And they were super friendly, and I made more money in that week than I had, you know, up until that time. And I'm like, this is sweet as.
Yeah,
and you're just sitting down drinking cordial with strangers, right? In 40-degree heat. So I did that, and then we went on another road trip the next week, and I made good money. And then we came back to Melbourne, and it like halved, and I'm like, oh my God, this is really hard.
Yeah.
But I still remember those glory days of like a week before, and so I stayed for 6 months and sort of, you know, potted around, got chased by a few dogs, and sworn at.
Did you get any crazy stories, like meeting someone that just was insane?
Yeah, look, none. Like you have your standard neighbors. They're like, "Get the fuck up my property!" blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm going to send my dog. Like it was pretty scary because you're walking around from like 10 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Oh wow,
like, it's a lot of walking. And really, I don't know.
What's with you and not getting a 9 to 5?
I don't know, man.
What
is that?
Yeah, I don't know. And now you're a founder, which is like 24/7, pretty much.
Yeah, that is pretty much 24/7. Yeah. So, Anyway, yeah. So. Moved from that to chefing, and then from chefing to recruitment. So I had to change my resume. Like, this is for all you job seekers out there. Like, persistent. We have this saying at Redwolf: persistence beats resistance.
Okay.
Right. So the only reason I believe that people fail is that they give up. They don't actually fail. They just stop trying. Right. They just stop trying. They decided that I'm going to try X number of times, and I'm going to decide, and they just decide that if it doesn't work after X number of times, they're going to give up. And they don't actually fail. They just have figured out 10 ways that it doesn't work, and then they decide that it will never work. But that's not true. It's just that you haven't figured out the way, the combination of ways that it will work for you.
So this is for job seekers, this advice?
Yeah, so this job seekers. So I changed my resume so many times. By the end of it, I started off being a chef. By the end of it, I was like interviewer and extraordinaire for multiple restaurants.
Awesome.
All I was doing was interviewing people apparently, and a little bit of cooking.
Yeah.
But then finally somebody gave me a shot, and I by that time I was out of work for like 4 months. So I was so pumped to get an interview, right? And I had
were you specifically trying to get a recruitment job?
Yeah. All I was doing was applying for recruitment jobs.
Why is that?
Because this friend of mine, Steve, he's like, yeah, you should go into recruitment.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
And I trusted him. Like he knew me.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, this is going to be a good career and it's exciting. And I want to work in tech.
Cool.
And I had this full on spreadsheet because it was so hard. So for those, I think, this is maybe inspirational for some people that are trying to get into, I know that there's a lot of people transitioning into tech or marketing or, design or front end, so some sort of software development. And they're transitioning out of different fields, and it's so the first job is the hardest job that you'll get. Like it'll be the hardest job that you get.
Yep. So just getting your foot in the door.
Getting your foot in the door and persisting. I had full-on spreadsheets, like color-coded red, yellow, and green for people that I've been following up. Every application, I'd make a phone call. I'd try and find out who it is. I'd make a call again. So it was like really persisting. And finally, after 4 months, I got like somebody gave me a shot, and I was so excited that I literally bubbled with enthusiasm. I was pretty sure they just hired me based on my enthusiasm for, and yes, I can do that. Like basically,
amazing.
Can you do this? Yes. Can you do this? Yes. And then I started, and I think I just learned everything. I had no idea, and I started calling people. I had no idea who they were, like clients, and I was just so excited for the first like literally 3 to 6 months that people liked talking to me because I was so happy, and I was just really happy that I had a job.
Yeah.
And I think they're like, yeah, cool, and they forgave a lot, like of me absolutely not knowing about the industry or whatever. And obviously, I was learning as I, kept going. So after 3 months, I knew a little bit more. But
a good attitude can take you a long way, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And if you really, if you're really like, diligent about it and you humble about it and you're like, look, I'm happy to start at the bottom. That whole student mentality of like constantly learning is just so, it's contagious. Like if you're like, oh, hey, discover this or this. We still have that at Redwolf. Like we approach everything from a, childlike, not childlike, but like a really in awe of things. Oh, I'm curious what this is like. I'm curious what that's like. Or let's try this. And it's okay to fail. Oh, it doesn't work. No problem.
Experiment,
that doesn't
right?
work, right? Yeah. And that creates a sense of wonder and fun and a safe environment to just try something and it fails. Like I fail like so many times.
Me too.
Yeah, everyone does, right? Like it's just like, okay, cool, that didn't work. Next.
For sure. It's that fear of failure that holds people back, I think.
Yeah.
Like even with this podcast, I was just like, you know what? No one could listen to this, but does that matter?
Yeah.
Not really.
No.
I'm going to die one day and everyone will forget me. So, I won't be embarrassed for eternity.
Leave a legacy. But also you might like, the people that listen to it, one of them you might touch their heart or change their lives with one of your guests.
That's worth it.
Right? That's totally worth it.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
That's like reason enough to do it. My book.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else?
So you got this new job.
I got this new
4
job.
months of
like hard search, and I just worked my ass off. I just applied that whole chef mentality. I worked really, really hard. I tried really hard, and I did pretty well there. I think there was a competition, and I just for the top consultant in Australia, and I just scraped in and managed to win that.
Wow!
Like within like 9 months of being there.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So I mean, it was.
Was that like an organizational award?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But it was like half of it, I think, was a bit luck because right at the last quarter, a bunch of roles came into my area, and I just worked, like to fill as many of them as possible, and that just pushed me ahead because I was always like second or third.
It's not just luck.
Yeah, you got to work it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you get a sense of I'm good at this?
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. Like I like the people in digital. Like they're like they're creative and smart and personable, and they're themselves, and they're always doing cool stuff.
Yeah,
like it's such a fascinating industry to be in. It's never stagnant. It's always changing. It's always evolving, and I really like that. And there was that salesy relationship building component that I really like as well. And it ticked a lot of my boxes. Strangely, so I did that, and then I got another job somewhere else. That didn't turn out so good.
Why is that?
Well, the person there, after about 10 months, I was like, this is a really toxic environment. I don't like being here. Like the boss was yelling at, their partner, their clients, the treating staff like
in front of everyone.
Yeah, and it was I just felt like it just felt really toxic and not a good environment. Like when you're in a good environment when it's wholesome, and then when there's like this weird fear amongst the staff, and I didn't like it. And so I sort of contacted somebody that I had worked with before, Rec to Rec, to sort of say, hey, look, I kind of want to get out of here. Can you find me another job? Just a heads up. And that was on a Friday. And then I think the next day, on Monday, I get pulled into the office. They're like, oh, we heard you're on the market. We're letting you go. Literally walked me out. And I'm like, oh my God, far out. This is insane.
So wait, you just had a conversation with did you say Rec to Rec?
Yeah. So they're like Rec to Recs are recruiters that recruit other recruiters for organizations. Okay. It's actually pretty hard to find good recruiters. So, so there's a whole industry, which is Rec to Rec, which finds recruiters for other recruitment agencies.
And how do you guys perceive these guys? Are these like the cream of the crop, or are they like the dodgy of the dodgy?
It really depends. Like, it's like anything, right? Like you might have like sort of shysters, CV flingers or whatever that they'll contact you out of nowhere. They'll give you one CV and then you'll never hear from them again. But, and that's been, that used to be the industry norm. But, recently last year, we came across someone really, really good who's got a similar attitude to us. Like, they're invested in their clients, they're invested in us. They took the time to find out about us, our culture, who we are, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then, they found a good match for us. So there's one, and then we've got one up in Brisbane as well, who's very similar. So if, there are definitely some golden nuggets there, but from my personal experience, they're very few and far between. So we've got, the good relationships that we have, but we sort of keep them pretty much exclusive.
Pretty funny recruiters use recruiters.
I know, right? But the thing is, I had no issue. I'm like, because people sometimes say, oh, recruitment's expensive. Yeah, but, if you're trying to grow, or if, you want to make a good hire versus a bad hire, paying that one-off fee is just like, yes, you have to stomach it. But, at the flip side of that, you get somebody that's so valuable that can help your business grow. And it is it's an investment, right?
100%. So, and a bad hire will cost you more than paying for a recruiter, I'd say.
100%. So, so this is why I believe in good Rec to Recs. Like, I think I see the ones that we have as partners, and we tell them about our strategy and we say, this is what we're going to do, and they get it. And I really rate them. So the good ones. Man. Yeah.
So what happened? Because he must have snitched, this Rec to Rec.
No, they did, because that was the only person I told. And I'm like, this was in confidence. How could you do this? And the worst thing was that I introduced them to the place that I was working at to try and help them.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man. So it was like, real dog move.
Snake.
Yeah, bad. And I'm just like, oh, this is not, like, I just felt so sick.
And they took you out. Can they do that?
Yeah, like in recruitment, like being walked is like pretty common, or it used to be. Like, you just literally, you fight on the spot and you pack up your stuff and you walked, escorted out, and everyone's gaping.
Where's fair work in all this?
Yeah, I don't know, man. You're right. Well, that company was less than 10 people. So fair work doesn't apply, unfortunately.
Well, when does it start applying? I should know
above
this.
10 people. Yeah, you should. Like,
I think it's to me.
At the time, it was 10. If the company is under 10 people, they can fire anyone for any reason without any recourse.
Really?
Yeah. And if it's above, it's different levels of organizations. And don't quote me, because I'm not like a full-on HR lawyer. But from my personal research and understanding, like the larger the company, the more HR responsibility it has, and the more
it makes sense. Yeah. But you think that fair work should apply to 10 people, 9 people.
Yeah. And I thought so, but I contacted them and a bunch of other people and didn't. And so, that was...
I think you mentioned this to me the other day, so it was pretty crazy what happened next.
It was a pretty doggy experience. I was like halfway through tons of roles and suddenly I'm like, oh, you're fired. And I'm like, but what about all the roles I'm working on? Like, what about all the people? And so I was like, I actually didn't know what the hell was going on, because I'm like, I literally haven't done anything wrong. Like, there's no, like, why are you firing me? Like, I've never been fired.
And were you performing?
Yeah, I was like the second, at that time, I was like the second top biller after the owner. And so I'm like, I'm making you money.
So they made an example of you, basically, right?
Yeah. Like, and you could just see, like, the other guys in the office were like the open mouths looking around, trying to look down.
Calling all their Rec to Recs. Cancel that. I did not call you.
Yeah, you never heard from me.
Yep.
Yeah, man, it was like, that was a gnarly experience. Like, and so then I just called, because I had good relationships, and I called them and I'm like, hey guys, I don't know what's going on. I've just been fired. Just put everything on hold. I'm sure this is some misunderstanding, whatever. So I went home, on Friday, and I'm like, then I get a letter, I think an hour or two later, saying that I have to appear in court. And I'm like, hang on, what? I'm like, this is a joke. And then I'm like, I ignored it. And then I think I contacted somebody the next day. I think it was my dad actually. And I'm like, hey man, can you read through this? Is this like legit? And he's like, yeah, I think this is legit. You have to go to court. And I'm like, but I haven't done anything.
What does that look like? A letter that says you have to come to court?
They're like, this, I was like, it's just like you are required to appear here. It's all legal talk, this. So I can't even remember. It was so long ago, but I just remember thinking, A, it was a joke, because I'm like, I don't like, I haven't done it. Like, even when you get a parking fine or you run a speed, like a red light camera, like, not that I do that, but like, you kind of know, oh yeah, I stuffed up. Yeah, I got to pay.
I've done it. Fair enough.
Fair enough, right?
Yeah.
But in this situation, I was like, I'm trying to think, like, what did I just do? Like, what just happened?
And was this all about you calling the rec to rec?
Yeah, that's the only person I told. So
they were taking you to court for that?
No, they were taking me to court for a non-compete, because somehow they thought that I was going to start my own business and take all their clients. And
but you're going to wait for your non-compete to end, right?
I wasn't actually. No, I was at the time. I wasn't.
Okay.
I literally just wanted to go, because I hadn't been in recruitment for that long at the time, and I just wanted to go work at a good company. Like, I'd worked in good restaurants and bad restaurants, right? And the good ones are amazing. Like, you stay there for years, you make friends, like, you have a blast. So I knew, and other restaurants are just like, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Like, they're horrible. So I knew, like, a good workplaces versus bad workplaces, right? And so I'm just like, look, this is a bad workplace. I just want to go into a good workplace.
Yeah.
I don't really want to do anything on my own. Like, I have not that much experience. Yeah, sure, maybe in 10 years I would have, but not so soon. And anyway, so then we had to go to court, and I'm like, I had no income. B, they didn't pay my commission. And I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, it's just one of those things that life, I think, just slaps you in the face out of nowhere. And it's like, right, I'm intervening. Like, this is divine intervention. We're going to take you in this direction now. And, like, retrospectively, it was amazing what happened afterwards. But right now, like, at the time, I remember I was in court, and obviously I couldn't afford any good lawyers. So I literally got a Yellow Pages bottom of the barrel lawyer, like old Joe next door. He's like, yeah, I reckon I can do that.
With the big trousers?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm kind of hoping for Harvey Specter here.
Yeah.
He's like, nah. So, so I got old Joe Blogs. I can't even remember his name. And clearly he did not do a good job in defending me, although he tried, bless him. But then, so there was the injunction, I think, was that they wanted me to serve out my 12-month non-compete, like for the full 12 months. They said, that was pretty much why we went to court.
But does that mean that you can't do your trade?
Yeah, that means that.
So you can't work as a recruiter?
Yeah. And so
that's not very fair.
No, it's not fair, man. And so that's what my lawyer argued. And he's like, look, this is his work.
Yeah.
You can't tell him not to work for 12 months. That's not fair. And they're like, no, we want that. And I'm like, and then we managed to get it down to 5 months.
I want $1 million from you. Like, you know what I mean?
No.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. And so, I just so we went back and forth for a while, and all the time I'm burning through money, and because
where were you getting it from? Because you didn't have.
I had a very limited amount of savings, and my lawyer was relatively cheap. It's only the barrister that was ridiculous. Every time we went to court, I had to drop like $1,000 or something. And so I didn't have that many savings, and luckily I was living in a really shitty apartment, like the worst possible 1-bedroom Dodgeville apartment you can think of. So I wasn't paying a lot of rent.
Paying cash.
Repairing their laundry in exchange for a week's rent kind of thing. So, it was Dodge Central. So, but I remember standing up in court at not the magistrates, but like the High Court or whatever, like a serious.
Oh, you went to
the High Court. What's the middle one?
I don't
There's
know.
another
Just
court.
The middle court.
Yeah, it escapes my mind now, but there's a High Court, and there's it's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, it's not a magic court. It's
Where's
the next
Supreme?
one.
Is it the top?
Supreme Court.
Supreme, High, and then I don't know.
It was the Supreme
It's a
Court.
local court.
Local?
Nah, it was above that. You had to go into the city, into a big building. It was like a legit court.
Yeah, wow. Did he wear the wig?
Yeah, they had wigs. Yeah, I didn't. I think that would have been fun. The gavel, not guilty. I find myself just not guilty. Yeah. Anyway, so I remember standing there like a little old me in a suit, thinking like I was literally tripping out because the other party was there with their lawyered up, and there's like 5 of them, and I'm here by myself, and I'm like, how did this happen? Like I didn't know how I got to this position. Like I just felt like I'd been run over by a bus, because I'm like, I went from everything was fine to suddenly sitting in this court trying to justify like what, you know? And then there was so many allegations and things like that. And I'm like, this is gnarly, man. This is like, and you know what? It actually, I remember because I was standing up in court, and I don't know for what reason, but I remember standing there feeling so alone, right? Because, you know, you can't have anyone there, and, you know, but at that moment as well, I knew that I had to dig deeper than I ever did before. Like wherever I had to dig, I'm like, find this strength, like find it, because you're like, you haven't done anything wrong. Like, yeah, sure, they want a 12-month non-compete to enforce that, but okay, that's the worst that can happen. And then so I just stood there and just started to just really go into myself and find my strength.
Yeah, where did you find it from?
I think it was just pure not desperation, but there was like, I can't explain it, man. It was like, I remember it was so much trauma. Like there was so much trauma around, you go into this state of, I went into this state of shock. Like I was just constantly in shock that, because it's pretty scary that all this stuff happening to you, and you're like, okay, I didn't even like run a red light. Why is this happening to me? Right. So, and then all these allegations and things, and you're like, none of this is actually true. Like it's all just bullshit. And I'm like, how is this happening? Anyway, so after that, I'm just like, okay, this is not cool. But I had to, obviously they made a thing where it's like, okay, you can't work in recruitment for 5 months. I'm like, all right, cool.
So your lawyer did something.
Yeah, he did something.
He got you 7 months
He got me 5 months, yeah. Bless him. I got him a bottle of whiskey.
Oh, good on him.
So that was, not bad. And also he was, you know, to his he's like, kudos to him. He said I could pay him off because he knew I was flat broke.
What a legend.
Yeah, he was actually all right. Like, you know, he came.
He's doing his best.
He was doing his best, and yeah, you know, bless him. Thank you for that. So,
so that was the settlement? It was 5 months?
So it was 5 months. So, and then the other thing is I had to pay, then they won all the court costs. So not only had to pay my own court costs, had to pay their court costs. It was like 15, it ended up being a lot of money, like 15 grand, I think, which I'm like, how the hell
for
did
an
I get
unemployed
that?
person?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And I think I borrowed from.
So they were really angry.
They were really angry. And it was such an emotional, it was not a rational reaction. It was a real, I felt the emotional, like the emotional person came out. I'm like, this is not a rational thing. Like the punishment does not equal whatever crime that they said that happened. And I'm like, I felt that there was maybe a hurt or something like that. If I'm being empathetic, maybe they were disappointed that I wanted to leave or something like that. And because of that hurt, this fury came out, this vengeance, you know,
like vitriol type stuff. Like to take someone to court, that's like,
yeah. I mean, it's like you never hear of that happening, man. Anyway, like, so that happened and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like I needed to figure out a way to earn money. So I started doing and I couldn't be in recruitment. So I couldn't contact anyone, literally. Like they sat 8 hours with me and went through every single one of my LinkedIn contacts and unfriended them. 8 hours in a cafe. And they're like, you know, you have to.
So you had to sit with these people after they took you to court? Before.
Yeah.
And
unconnect, disconnect.
8 hours.
Yeah, man. I remember. And I'm like, this is insane. This is like,
that's not normal.
Minutia is, it's like verging on insanity. Like, why would you put yourself and somebody else through that? Like, it's just a vent.
Was it awkward sitting with them for 8 hours?
Of course. Luckily, my brother came for a bit. But then after like 6 hours, he's like, man, I'm out of here. This is taking forever.
Was it you doing the clicking or was it?
Yeah, I was doing the clicking.
Okay. I'm trying to picture this in my mind.
It was in a cafe, like you're sitting at a cafe and they're like double checking across their database and they're like, you have to unclick this person. You have to unclick that person.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, this is so gnarly. Like it's just.
So they put you through that and then took you to court. And then they also got $15,000 or whatever it was to pay for their own legal team.
Yeah, but they ended up throwing a party with that money, which was kind of sucky. And they invited all the people in the industry and they fed them a bunch of like basically lies. I heard about it afterwards and they're like, yeah, we were at that party, man, and it was super awkward. Like they were just bad mouthing you. And I'm like, And I just felt so, I think, because I was already out of the industry, and you feel so defenseless because you can't defend yourself. Like you can't say anything. You cannot contact anyone. Like you just have to sit there and hear these murmurs, and you're like, my whole personality is being destroyed right now. And I have to sit by and watch it happen, right? It was a really hard time actually. But luckily I had one of this really cool developer that I'd managed to sort of become friends with, I guess. And he was friends with my brother. He's like, why don't we just start a digital agency? And I'm like, well, I still like digital. I can't work in recruitment. So maybe I can just do account management and project management and learn some cool skills. So we did that for a while. And then I consulted to one of my friends who was starting a food business just to do all his, just basically consult, make sure that he's, making money and, not losing money and product spread and stuff like that.
Yeah, cool.
And then, so I worked with that digital agency for a while, and I learned a lot, man. To be honest, that was such a blessing because I got firsthand experience of like all the drama that you have to go through from like chasing clients up for like, hey, can I have this content, to like negotiating this, to talking about the different tech stacks, solving problems. It was really actually.
So you almost went to your client side for a little while there just to experience what it's like.
Totally.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then after a while, I'm like, I kind of miss recruitment. Like it was coming up to that 5 months, and I'm like, I actually really like what I do. I knew that, like, I like the people that I work with. I knew that we could bring value if it's done right. Like you can actually be pretty valuable to somebody, like a partner, to help them grow. And if you do it genuinely, they'll recognize that you're there to serve them. Like recruitment is a service industry. Like it's absolutely a service industry. If you're not there to serve people, you shouldn't be in there, right? In my opinion. And I liked that. I'm like, I like helping people achieve their goals, and then they help us achieve our goals. So anyway, so I started thinking, I was coming up to the, 5 months, and I'm like, I sort of started thinking about it in my mind. I'm like, am I going to continue in this digital agency or not? And I think it started to get closer and closer, and I started to feel a little bit of like anger towards them. I'm like, you guys completely like, can I say the F word?
Yeah.
Like fucked me, right? And I didn't actually do anything. Like, fair enough if I had done something, but to just do this.
It's almost like bullying or defamation or something.
Yeah, man. Like it was really like, it was a pretty dog move, to be honest. And I just sort of started to think about it. I'm like, this isn't cool. Like, I don't think this is right. And so I think one of their fears was that I was going to go and start my own agency. And and during that time, I'd been, to a few interviews, been flown up to Sydney, got offered a job, or a couple of jobs. And I was like, this is cool. That's good. But I don't think I want to do that. I think, the best, success is the best revenge, right? And I almost felt so hard done by that, like injustice had been done, that I'm like, you know what? I'm actually going to start my own thing, after the 6 months, because I'm just going to this is like, I could go into another agency and they could just do the same thing. And I know that if it's done right, like you can have a wonderful life, a wonderful team, and bring a lot of value to the community and serve them. And I'm like, that's the kind of business that I want to work for. And if it doesn't exist, I'll just start one, and it can just be me for now, and then we'll build a team. And that's what I did. So literally the day after the order was to finish, I registered, Redwolf. And the name, I guess, was, my surname's Wolkowski, which it's Polish, but it's got its origins in Lithuania, and it means from wolf's family.
Oh, cool.
So I had a real affinity for the wolf, and, wolves are actually like, they're scary hunters, but, they actually bring a lot of benefit to the environment. So there's a really cool short doco on YouTube called How Wolves Change Rivers. So, they're very positive overall for the ecosystem. So, and they're really big on their pack, and, they've got this spiritual element. So there's a lot of things that I identified about that. And like, I think the red sort of came from, like, it was kind of born out of blood and passion. And so that's how I guess deep. Redwolf came. Yeah, man, like that was a real traumatic time for me. So I bled. And so that started, and then that's, I guess, when the sun started to come out a little bit. At first I was really afraid really to contact anyone, because I'm like, who the hell was at that party? What have they heard? What have they told others? And I started reaching out to people, and it was pretty slow going. But then, I had one person, one by one, I got like one supporter, and then, a friend of a friend might refer me to somebody else. And then I got another supporter, and those, because I'd come out of this, I don't know what people have thought, I was so determined to over service people and be like, I will give you everything. I'll give you the best service. I'll give you my absolute 100% to show you that I'm so committed to you. And I think that set the pace. I think it set the scene for how we wanted to be as a business. I'm like, I want to be the opposite of what they were. I want to be 100% there for our customers. I want to make sure that what we're doing helps them become more successful. I want to help them grow. I just want to serve them. And there's a lot of satisfaction in serving well, and work really, really hard for them, and just almost, I don't know, just do really good things as much as I can, right? And so, yeah, we got like 1 client, 2 clients and whatever. And I had to still pay back my lawyer. So every bit of money that I'd earned was like paying back my debts. I had to borrow money from my dad to actually pay my rent. Like it was pretty crazy. And then what happened? And then, what was amazing is that, I don't know, maybe like a year in, a client, like a really successful entrepreneur, he, I placed a really senior Rails engineer, Ruby on Rails engineer with them. And I think we had some issues with the invoice. He didn't want to pay the amount, whatever. But, and so I was going to meet with this CEO, successful, and I rock up and it's this mansion, like it's sprawling mansion out the front. It's like BMWs and Mercedes. And I'm like, whoa.
It's like, why aren't you paying your invoice, buddy?
Yeah, like, it's not that much, man.
Yeah.
I mean, your car costs 100 times more than that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I rock up and it's so weird because instantly we clicked, this guy. I was ready. I'm like, I'm going to have to negotiate or battle or whatever. But I just met him and we instantly like clicked. And I'm like, oh, this guy's cool. And he felt the same. And we just had the best conversation. And he's like, you know what? I want to back you. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I've got a recruitment company that's been around for 20 years, but no one's really running it right now. Why don't we merge and I'll back you. I'll support you. And I'm like, yeah, but I kind of want to do my own thing. I've been burned in the past. Let me think about it. Then I looked this guy up and he's like so successful. And I thought to myself, my little company is worth almost nothing right now. What would it cost to buy a mentor like that, right? Probably a lot more than half my company.
Yeah.
And I thought, being around somebody like that who's so vibrant and abundant and, just full of life, I'm like, that would be, and the fact that this guy wanted to back me when someone that was the complete opposite was, dragging me through mud. I'm like, this is a huge difference to me, like this means so much. And I'm super, super grateful for this opportunity. So I jumped on it and we merged, and that company was called Rosch. And then we thought, well, we've got 2 names. Are we going to create a new name or should we just merge them somehow? And then we thought, well, let's put a plus there because, it's adding value, it's positive, all of that sort of connotation. So we became Redwolf and Rosch plus Roche. And then from there it was really, really good. And yeah, we worked together well for 2 years. I learned a lot from him. Like he's such an awesome dude and really helpful. And it showed me that like really successful people are actually really good people. Like, obviously that's a blanket statement, but
generally.
Right? They're successful at life. They're good people. They work hard. They do well, and they're good, like decent human beings. And just to have his support was like so. I'm so grateful. I'll always be grateful for that because it got me out of a dark place into a much lighter place. It gave me more confidence to say, hey, look, you know what? I don't care what somebody may have lied about or in the past. I'm like, there's really successful people that want to back me and recognize the work that I do. And it was just such an important confidence boost to just have that one person literally. And he wasn't that involved. Like he just said, I believe in you. Right. And that alone was like, just have one person. Because when you're going through things like, there's so many challenges as a founder and whatever, and you're always switched on, you're always thinking about it. It's your whole life. And it kind of can be lonely sometimes where you don't have anyone that you can sort of talk to or empathize with. And just to have one person at one time say, you know what, I believe in you and I want to back you. That is a game changer. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, man.
And how did that period compare to the period after chefing?
Oh yeah, it was.
Because you went through like, it sounds like 2 periods of time where you were sort of just floating around, not knowing what to do.
Yeah. So then we got a bit more momentum. Like this guy created more structure and it was a better operation and whatever.
Yep.
And so yeah, we were sort of rolling then, and we'd gained a little bit of traction. I got some clients and things like that, and started to talk about branding and stuff like that. So started to become more of a business.
Yep.
And then after a while, this guy was fairly a little bit getting close to retirement, whatever, and sort of we said, hey, let's stay friends, but he doesn't want to be involved every day. So then I bought we agreed that I would buy him out, and then but I needed some money to do that, and so I thought it's really nice having a good partner. And so I asked one of our long-term clients if he'd be interested, and he was like, "Yeah, definitely, I believe in you." And again, that same message started to come through.
Cool, that's coming from clients.
Yeah, I know. Like, it was totally unexpected, but and sometimes you have like good relationships with people. Like, you just have an instant rapport, like we do, for example, right? And you're just like, yeah, they get us, and we get them, and you genuinely want to help them, and they want to help you, right? And so it's this reciprocal positive vibe.
That's how you succeed in business. Yeah, just having relationships like that where you build connection and you help others and they help you. I think that's how you really succeed.
Yeah, 100%. Like you help each other. Like, you know what one person wants to do and the other, and you just try and help each other get there if you can.
So what would you say if there's people listening to this that are going through that or a similar situation where they might be bullied or people are talking about them behind their backs or they've been treated unfairly?
Yeah.
How did you get through that, and what advice would you give them?
Like I think I actually started to question myself for a while. I'm like, did I actually do something wrong? And then you just have to dig deep and say, okay, you didn't. Like, you didn't. Like, because most of the people are good. Like, I believe that in the world, most of the people are mostly good, right? There's a few bad eggs, whatever, but mostly they're good. And so you just sort of reference the good people in your life, and that's what I did. And I had good friends and good family and whatever to support. And then I think it's just like there's something happens in trauma where you find a part of yourself. Like it happened for me. Like, I found this part of myself that I'm like, it was almost this stubborn thing where I'm like, this was an injustice had happened. I now have to correct this injustice, like karmically, and I don't want to do injustice to anybody else, but I have to build something that I can be proud of that will bring good to others. And it's that kind of, so in a way, it's like, that, like, I don't know who said that saying, but haters keep me motivated, right?
I haven't heard that.
It could be a rapper, I don't know. It could be like one of those 50 Cent kind of like, yeah, haters keep me motivated, right? But anyway, like, I remember that wherever I'd heard it, and I'm like, you know what? Like, it doesn't motivate you to retaliate. It motivates you to do better, for me anyway. And I'm like, that event that had happened, I'm like, I'm actually going to rise above. Like, I want to do better. I want to outperform. I just want to like rise so much that won't bother me anymore. That will be like a jet engine to say, I'm going to do better. Like it's kind of a motivator.
Yeah, you've used it as motivation.
Yeah.
And how are you tracking?
Yeah, really good. Like, we're expanding across Australia, obviously.
Amazing.
We're super busy. We've got an amazing, like, a beautiful team. I love the team. Like, the Wolfpack's just a bunch of good souls that work hard, work together. Like, it's exactly what I wanted. Like, I wanted to build a family, like an agency that I felt was like a family, that we then have a broader family of clients and candidates, that we all treat each other well, that we support each other, and that these are the values that we live by. And whether we're big or small or whatever, that's like something that will never change. It doesn't matter. It matters that we live by these values. So yeah, man, like, overall, that as hard as that was, I'm actually grateful for the experience, because if that had never happened, I may never have decided to start Redwolf, and I may never had the intense desire to make it as positive as I could, like to bring good to and so intent on trying to have a good culture, trying to support others, trying to be there. Like, because of that bad experience, I was so determined to have the opposite of that moving forward. And so, like, retrospectively, I'm grateful for it, Yeah, sure, it's hard, and sure, maybe there's a few people there believe that, they might believe fake news, whatever. That's cool. No one's ever going to love you all the time. And I don't think they should, because if you're like, it's like the prom queen or king that's so popular in high school, everybody loves them. And then they get out in real life and they just realize that, hey, not everybody loves them. And they actually don't have the facilities or the capacity to succeed in this world where everybody doesn't love them.
Yeah, wow.
And so that's the thing. Like, no one person is going to be loved by everyone, I believe. There's always going to be people that don't like you, no matter who you are. And if you accept
that's their problem, not yours.
Exactly, man. Like, you don't like me? Okay, cool, man. That's your feeling.
I wouldn't like you, Bart.
No, I'm just saying. no, but I was just saying, like, yeah, I mean,
I'm all love, man.
Mutual love, man. Yeah, I know. Bro out.
100%.
But you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
It's just perspective. Like, if a situation happens to you, right? Like, the thing is, like, it really depends. It's on you how you choose to react to it. Like you could have something terrible happen to you and you could be like, I hate the world, everyone's screwed. I'm going to be angry for the rest of my life. Okay, cool. That's one response. If that's the way you want to go, that's your choice. Or you could say, something's happened to me. I'm actually going to try to be the best version of myself and live my best life because I've already been through hell and I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. And what's cool about your story is you don't want to do it to others.
No way, man. I want to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Like I want to
create, you are.
Yeah, like a loving community of support. Because what we're doing is so exciting, is so awesome. It's so vibrant. Like the community is awesome. The people are great. It's when it's done right, it's such a rewarding job, and it's such a cool thing to do. So yeah, man, I'm super pumped about the future.
Yeah, and with your story, it sounds like this person who, took you through the mud actually ended up having the opposite effect. So they wanted to hold you down.
Yeah, that's true.
It actually motivated you to do what they were scared of. So that's what happens when you act out of fear.
Yeah, that's so true, man.
You act out of fear, you do things that are unethical or, negative.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to serve you very well.
No. And that might bring your fear about, like if that's what
it has in this case.
Yeah, I know, man. So, but I'm not upset. I'm just grateful for the opportunity to, like life. This is the thing. Like sometimes I don't know if you've ever had this, but like sometimes life will wallop you, and you're just like, whoa, that was a huge, hit. But it serves to wake you up and say, hey, this is what you should be doing. And you may not have got there by yourself. Like this is the thing.
Probably not.
So everyone that's gone through hard times or trauma, like, I've gone through my fair share, but now I see it as, I'm a big believer, like pretty spiritual, not religious, but spiritual, right? And I'm like, life is there to help you. It's not there to be against you. Like this is my own personal belief, right?
Sure.
It's like if you believe that, and then I start to look at every tough situation or everything that happens, I'm like, okay, what's the good that's going to come out of this? Like right now it's horrible. Like even COVID, like my personal view on that is like, yeah, it was terrible and shocking and I feel sorry for the bad things that have happened. But like, let's think about what it's going to be like in 2 or 3 years from now, or even the good things that have started to happen.
Yeah.
Like we're pushing for more renewables, like, for example, or we're pushing for, like personally, I'm a plant-based, so I love when more vegan things are available. Like the communities are coming together. People across the world, there's a lot more community vibe. So if you think about, like, yeah, sure, the bad thing has happened, but what's the positive flow-on effect that, that's years later down the track? And would that have happened if that bad thing had not happened? Like probably not. Or maybe that would have taken 10 more years or 50 more years to actually happen.
Yeah, it's just like you can dwell on the negatives or you can dwell on the positives. And I think where you focus your minds, that will have an effect on your whole life and your lens and how you view the world.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, you can be conscious of that. Like people think that they're not in charge of their emotions. But in fact, if you take a step back and you say, like, this is what I do. I'm like, oh, what am I feeling right now? And is this legit? Like, or is, like if you look at your emotions and you can say, oh, I'm feeling negative about this, or I'm feeling positive about this. People can change that. Like everything's a choice. Happiness is a choice. Positivity is a choice. People might think that they don't have that choice, but there's horrible things. You hear of Holocaust survivors that are now 104 years old that have, forgiven, all the people that have hurt them and their families. And they chose to do that. They didn't have to do that, but they chose to do that. And for me, I can figure if I make choices that, that I'm more positive, then I will have a better life. Like it's not, other people won't care, but I will care. So I can choose to either forgive or look at the positive side and my life will be better. And if I want my life to be better, I should probably do more of those things.
Yeah, and I often say, like, there's definitely victims.
Yeah.
That's all right. There's definitely victims. Bad things happen to people. People get treated unfairly. You were a victim, right? And we shouldn't discredit that.
Yeah. That
bad things happen. But that doesn't mean you need to have a victim mentality that you carry 100%. With you all the 100%. Time. You can be a victim and it takes time to overcome things.
Yeah.
So, if you got a victim mentality for a time, fair enough. Yeah. You're a victim. But I think carrying that with you for your life is only going to serve to, make your life worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of lost my way there a little bit, but you know what I'm saying.
I love that. I'm vibing with that, man. That's cool.
Yep. So I wanted to chat with you about balance.
Yeah.
As we wrap up. Crazy story. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You know what? I almost forgot about it. I'm glad we talked about it because it's been it's such a long time ago that you kind of forget, but then you're like, actually, that was a real tough time.
Yeah. It was, man. And good on you. Like I would have never known that you'd been through that from our interactions. And I think, we clicked straight away.
Yeah.
When I was contacting recruitment companies, I was kind of a bit skeptical, but you just called me and we just had a yabba and I was like, oh yeah, I like this guy. All right, I'll give him a crack. I trust him. Which is cool. It's that human connection, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So I love that. But as a founder, right, and someone with a big dream and a drive, how do you find balance in your life? Because that's something that I'm struggling with at the moment, something that I'm on the journey to try and resolve. I want to live a really balanced, prosperous, healthy life where I don't neglect my family and friends because I'm going after a goal, but I'm really hungry for the goal. So I'm just wondering how you go with that.
Yeah, cool. That's a really good question because, you tend to, your work becomes your life, I think, a lot of the time. And so the way that I've started to deal with it, obviously because there's a lot of stress that goes with it, is by allowing myself some freedom within that space. So I say, something like if I feel like I notice if I'm stressed or something like something's particularly tough, I'll allow myself, I'll go outside and go for a walk around the block and I'll be like, right now I'm not going to do everything. So I'll put myself in offline mode. And for me, what's worked is allowing these little sections of freedom throughout the day, which is just for me, because then that's enough to recharge me to say, right, I'm back in once I finish that. So it's kind of giving myself the freedom to be human, and say, right, I've had 2 days like insane. Like yesterday, I worked so much, and I think at 8 o'clock, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I just can't anymore.
And I've got to drive all the way to Sydney to be on a stupid podcast that I committed to.
I was looking forward to this. This is cool. So yeah, like for me, it's freedom. So whether you want to go to the gym or, like if I have to work on the weekend, I'll be like, right, I'm going to catch up with my friend, go for a run first. We'll have brunch. And then I'm going to smash out between, 4 hours of work.
Yep.
And so it's like, it's keeping an eye for me in the background of like what I have to do, and then saying, but monitoring my body and mind and saying, all right, like for example, if I've had it, if I'm like my cup is overflowing right now, like take that pressure off. Go. Like sometimes I might just like if I've had like a full on like sometimes I might have like back to backs, and then I'm like my brain is spent, so I'll like lie on the bed and do like a 20-minute meditation, or like lie somewhere and just completely put my phone in like don't contact me mode, do a 20-minute meditation, have a cup of tea and allow that space. Like, that's helped me so much.
Sounds to me like you're making sure that you're flexible with yourself.
Yeah.
As well as being flexible for the business.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people go, I have to work this many hours.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not your own business, right? You're like, all right, I've got these fixed hours. Oh, crap. But I need to spend an extra 4 hours to finish this task.
Yeah.
But then they're not flexible with themselves when they need a break or they're feeling stressed.
Yeah.
So I encourage my team. It's like, hey, if you need a rest,
go
have a rest and then just come back. If you want to start at 10 and finish at 6, go for it.
Yeah, totally.
So I think as a founder, you should also have that flexibility with yourself because you're going to work more than 40 hours some weeks.
Absolutely.
So some weeks work less than 40 hours.
Yeah, I don't know
if possible.
But it's all about tasks. Like so now you don't work by hours. You're like, all right, I've got to get these 50 things done. So all right, I'm going to do these things. One thing that I really just like, I know we have to go, but one thing that I can highly recommend is a Pomodoro. So it's like ingrained in Redwolf culture now. We just call them.
Hey, I've got no idea what that is.
Okay, so the concept came through because they're Pomodoro is tomato in Italian. So a Pomodoro timer is actually a little tomato-shaped timer. And some guy, I can't remember where, but it's on Wikipedia, he came up with this concept of time boxing called Pomodoro.
Okay.
And what the concept is you work intensely on one task for 25 minutes and you ignore everything else until that one task is done. And then at the end of that, you have a 5-minute break. You can have a coffee, do whatever you want and you allow yourself that 5-minute break. But during that time, you ignore calls, you ignore tests until that task is done. And sometimes that task might only take 17 minutes or even just 7 minutes.
What if it takes more than 25?
Then you do another Pomodoro. So you can have some tasks might take 4 Pomodoros or 6 Pomodoros.
Yeah, wow.
Or you might have a Pomodoro where you do the task for 1 Pomodoro, then go through your emails for 25 minutes and then go back to your Pomodoro. So for me, it's a powerful time boxing technique because it's again allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to ignore all the calls, everything like that, because right now you're extremely focused on getting this one thing done. And, in our world, I'm sure you're the same, but you're constantly getting pinged, Slack, messages, totally. And what happens with that for me is there's a little bit of overhead every time you task switch, right? And that overhead, if you task switch hundreds of times a day, it actually adds up to a significant portion over the days, weeks, and months. And what the Pomodoro does is it allows you to not task switch. And it's kind of you give yourself permission because we feel compelled, like, oh, maybe I should answer that Slack now, or maybe. Yeah. And the fact that it's only 25 minutes, no one's going to be upset with you if they have to wait 20 minutes for you to get back to them. Right?
100%.
Like, and so this is, for me, it's been a game changer. Okay. And it's allowed me to structure my day in Pomodoros and be less stressed about it.
You sound fancy when you say that. I'm not even trying to say Pomodoro. Is that right?
Pomodoro. Yeah. It's like it's a thing. Apparently Elon Musk is into it as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's not why I got into it. I got into it before him.
Oh, like
whatever.
Yeah. He copied me.
Nah. But like it's a thing. It's it's a thing. So
that's awesome.
That's cool, man. Yeah.
I might try that out.
Yeah, check it out. Even like sometimes I might only schedule some of my day Pomodoros and leave it open. Yeah. Like, let's face it, like some days you just have meetings and you can't time box everything. But for tasks, you know, and it also forces you like, oh my God, I've only got 17 minutes to finish this.
Yeah.
I've got to hurry.
It's funny when you time box something, you're like, I've got 30 minutes to finish it. Yeah. You finish it in 30 minutes. But if you go, I've got 2 hours, you'll take 2 hours.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, if people want to get in touch with you or learn more about your business, how can they do that?
So probably easiest is to Google Redwolf. So Redwolf is one word, and then Rosch is ROSCH, and then all our details will come up.
Awesome.
Or you can call me if you want. My mobile number's on the internet. I have like many spam calls all the time. Or you can find me on LinkedIn.
And as long as you're not in a Pomodoro, you'll answer.
Pomodoro.
Pomodoro.
Yeah, but then I'll call you back.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, you can get in touch with me. Look me up on LinkedIn, probably is the easiest, Bart Wolkowski. Or you can Google Redwolf and Rosch. Like, because the thing is, like, the Googles will come up with all the contact details anyway. Cool. So rather than people trying to remember email addresses and stuff. But yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, man.
Coming all the way up. You know,
It was a pleasure to see you again. And thanks for inviting me on your awesome podcast. I hope it does really well.
Thanks,
Such
man.
a good idea.
And if you need a recruiter in the tech world, Bart's your man. I'll back him in. All right.
Thanks, man. That's cool.
Thanks so much, man.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to keep up to date. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram @The Prosper Podcast. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.